Hello my fellow gamers and welcome to a new guide on how to start on a fresh map in City Skylines. My older video on this subject is quite efficient and easy to follow, but I wanted to make a new one which would help all the players who like to create a more natural, free-flowing city rather than a straight-up efficient but ugly and gridded out one. So here is how you get to a city like this, with over 2,500 population, 50,000 credits in the bank, and all services and utilities built with room and budget to spare. My name is Peter, and let's get to it. The first thing you have to do when starting a new map is look at the available spots for drinking water and sewage dumping. Rivers have a flow which will decide where to take water from and where to dump sewage. The two cannot be mixed or you will poison everyone. To see the water flow, you need to look at the water overlay, but this isn't available because it is not yet unlocked. For this, you need to place at least one street connection on the highway entrance. These roads have varying prices, and when you compare them, you will see that the dirt road has the lowest price per section. This is why you want to use it when starting a new city, as it will cost much less to place additional roads, and the more roads you have, the more zones you can build on, earning more money from taxes. I am going to draw out this long road which will bring the traffic in, and a second road which will take the traffic out. Now these are two-way roads, which means one lane is currently being wasted, but you will upgrade these later on to one-way two-lane streets and then get a 100% traffic volume boost without messing up your starting design. Now that the water overlay is unlocked, we can take a look at the river and see which direction the water flows. This shows us that the water pumping station goes here and more can be added later. You should note that the water pumping station is far more cost efficient than the water tower, because of its lower price and higher water capacity. The placement is the only limiting factor. The sewage dumping station goes over to the right, downstream. Now you need to connect the two with pipes, because pipes run in parallel by default, so there is no need for a separate pipe system for sewage. The placement of these two utility buildings is of major importance, as many new players end up poisoning their sims in the first hour of gameplay because they place the sewage dumping station upstream and then sims get to drink contaminated water. With the pipes laid down, you need to choose a starting power source. Wind turbines are honestly my favorite in this game, but in this city there aren't a lot of good places for them, and the coal power plant, if we take a closer look at the performance, is a lower total investment for a higher power output. The price to pay is of course pollution, but that is why we will keep it at the edge of town. Now you need a power line to get that power to the water pumping station and the sewage dumping station. This is costly but also unavoidable. With both utilities finished, you need to make sure to lower the budget expenses on the two by 50%. This will prevent wasting credits on extra power and water you do not have anyone using. As the city grows, you will raise these a bit at a time, keeping them at an optimum rate. As each city starts with a healthy demand for residential zones, we need to start with these. But as you don't want to poison your first sims, you need to keep them away from the coal power plant. So now, in keeping with the idea behind this video, I'm going to do some curvy roads and create some interesting patterns. This will of course cause a reduction in the amount of zonable spaces and make for less tax revenue. But that is the cost of making a non-grid city. As my art teacher used to say to me as she was evaluating my drawings and paintings, art isn't supposed to be functional, efficient, or to make sense, Peter. It's supposed to inspire and make you wonder. That was quite anathema to me, so it's no surprise I ended up studying organization and standardization. But enough about me, let's get to zoning residential areas. These first few ones will transfer the power to all the next, but for them to receive power, we need to connect them to the coal power plant. Now you're free to zone more residential. With the first homes built, commercial zone demand will soon start to rise, so it is a good time to intersperse C zones inside of those R zones. You need to keep one thing in mind here. Mixing RCI zones is the best way of preventing future traffic problems. I will not go into the full details here, but if you want to hear the entire explanation and see the examples, I will link my video on this subject to the right and in the description below. With residential and commercial zones set, it is time to add industrial zones, as new sims want jobs and those new shops want more goods to sell. These you can place right next to that polluting coal power plant, as citizens in this game can only get sick at their homes, not while working or when shopping. After all of this, expand your R and C zones more, but remember to add industry zones in a sandwich of commercial zones. This is the second part of RCI mixing design, as by doing this, you not only spread the traffic volume of cargo and delivery trucks around the whole city instead of just one part of it, but you also reduce the time those delivery trucks take to move goods from I to C zones down to a fraction. and in doing so, reduce traffic volume even more. This advice is part of the reason I was able to build a city with more than 1 million sims on the hard mode no less in my Let's Play, which you can watch by clicking on the link up here. Now, at this point, your city will become profitable and start earning credits from taxes. Do not worry about spending the whole bank account, as each milestone you hit will reward you with additional credits. Once you hit 500 population, you will unlock garbage collection, medical services and education, along with those extra credits. You need to use them to build a landfill, because citizens will start asking for this service and abandon the city if you do not provide it. Naturally, a landfill is a large polluter, so just as the coal power plant before, you want to place it at the edge of town. At this point, check on your utilities budget and capacity, as it might need to be raised to have enough power and water for more sims and more zoned buildings. If you have been enjoying this video thus far, please do not mind me taking a moment to remind you to hit that like button and possibly subscribe, and in doing so help me create even more videos like this. Next, your city needs an elementary school to educate sims which come into it totally uneducated. Place it deep inside the R zones to cover a lot of homes. An important note here is that you do not want to educate everyone, because a lot of the industry actually needs uneducated workers to fill open jobs. This is why a lot of players end up bankrupting their cities, chasing total education, not knowing they do not need to do so. Lastly, a medical clinic will make sure your sims have access to medical care, which helps them prepare for leveling up their homes. Now all you have to do is sit back, wait for the taxes to come in, and keep adding more roads, utilities and new RCI zones. In no time, you will be hitting the worthy village milestone, which unlocks fire and police departments, 2 industry specializations and a host of other gameplay mechanics. You will also get another gift of credits, which is best used for building a police station, which needs to cover your sims' homes and their workplaces, and a firehouse, which is most beneficial to the industrial zones as they have the highest number of fires. Since you have unlocked the district tool, you can use it now to create your first city's district, covering most of the city, but also create separate districts which will cover nodes of industry zones, which you can then specialize depending on the natural resources they are placed on. Forestry industry specialization is especially cool because it doesn't create ground pollution, so you can have sims living right next door to it. You might be thinking that you are limited in where you can create this forestry industry, but you can actually do it anywhere you want, and I have a video explaining that, which I will link up here. Now, while waiting for the next milestone to unlock, you should expand your RCI zones, add additional roads to zone on, increase your utilities budget and enjoy your view. At 1500 population, you will reach the tiny town milestone, unlocking a host of features and buildings, of which the most important are the high school and parks. Those parks and plazas are quite necessary as they will help our zones level up, increasing the number of households in them and by extension the number of citizens. This then increases the amount of taxes those homes pay. They also provide similar benefits to citizens as shops do, meaning you can build fewer shops and so fewer generic industry zones. This is where offices come into the picture to pick up those unemployed sims once they are highly educated. Here you have to choose the parks which are not too expensive but have large area coverage and can fit in between your streets. A single park is never enough, because to get good coverage on homes and shops, you have to have converging circles of influence from multiple parks. The higher the entertainment value of a park, the higher the influence and more effect they have on the surrounding homes. As for the district policies, you can reduce the garbage accumulation by banning pets, you can increase the health of your sims by banning smoking, and use the Parks and Recreation's district policy to increase the effect parks have on buildings upgrading. At this point, you will have to start to double up on critical services and utilities. Do note that your services do not have a problem with capacity right now, but reach instead. As your city spreads out, it's harder for just one building to cover all the new zones. Do not worry, you will not be overpaying that capacity for long. As our zones level up and more sims move in, the capacity will be filled and extra taxes will more than make up for it. Another tip I have to give you here is that tax revenue drops the more credits you have on your bank account. It might sound strange that it is a bug or an actual feature, but in any case, it is something I have experimented on and showcased in a separate video that you can watch on my channel. With the leveling up of commercial zones, you will find yourself with the first warning pop-ups and abandonment issues not long after. This is actually totally normal, as you will not have the educated workers these buildings require. The high school not only requires a lot of grades to build, but also takes time to create the first well-educated Sims which these buildings need. Once you hit the boomtown milestone at 2,600 population, the cemetery is the next service you will need to provide, and it is best placed deep in the RCI zones to provide its beneficial influence. Yes, contrary to your own and real-world logic, citizens in City Skylines are happier when there is a graveyard or a crematorium next door. This is a solid reminder that this is a game first and a simulation second, and if you play it in a way that tries to force real-world logic on a game world, you will have a hard time playing it. My parting tips for you are: keep balancing the budget for utilities to prevent overspending, level up zones by providing the services they require, diversify your industry and try to produce everything locally. Once you get to high density zoning, never use up all your commercial demand, as that will break your RCI demand. Zone high density residential a bit at a time or risk debt waves. And of course, I have you covered with videos on all of these subjects and more in a playlist in the description and a card on the screen. If you still run into trouble, feel free to write and I will help you. Now go and build your dream city following these basic rules and have fun.